Hello and welcome to Chat UTD. Today we are going to look back at the weekend, look at the game, look at what happened in the stands, which was like Noah's Ark, Rooney's comments. Then we're going to look forward to the Newcastle game, the Brighton game, and the rest of the season. What's the state of play basically? Um, and none of it is particularly pretty, I'm afraid. Let's look at the game on Sunday. It's quite depressing to say, but I think it's true that we'd have probably all taken a 1-0 defeat against Arsenal, wouldn't we? There was probably fearing worse than that. It was all right. We didn't get pasted. I felt like Arsenal never really got out of second gear, but it was different, which is what I've been calling for. They weren't just getting in at will, which was good to see. I was really surprised that Casemiro was picked. I think if you look at the evidence of the last few games when he's played centre back, you wouldn't pick him. And I wonder if it's born out of stubbornness from Ten Hag rather than anything else. He was quite combative in his press conference on Friday, and I think sometimes when a manager's struggling, they fight fights that they don't need to fight, and the Casemiro one for me is just a bit weird. He's been terrible at centre back, and there are other options there, as I've discussed before. Camboala was on the bench. I've said before, you could put Aaron Wan-Bissaka right-sided centre-back and put Harry Amas at left-back. You could put Amrabat at left-back and do the same with Wan-Bissaka, or you could put Amrabat as centre-back and put Casemiro further forward. There are options, but it didn't lead to a catastrophe. He was at fault, in my opinion, for the goal, so it didn't work, but I'm not confident with him in that position. Moving on to what should we do next? The stadium. Some of the scenes that are doing the rounds on Twitter, it's like something out of Noah's Ark. The floods of Old Trafford. It's like if you ever wanted multiple metaphors of the state of the club, there it is. Leaks from the dressing room, leaks in the ground, leaking goals left, right, and centre. The rain. It never rains, but it pours, which is a saying that we have around here. But the biggest metaphor being that the neglect of the stadium is there for everybody to see. It's 19 years of being left when there's clearly a problem. David Gill said that the roof leaked when he was still there. So it's clearly a problem that hasn't been fixed. But some of those scenes are absolutely shameful, I believe. And meanwhile, one of the Glazers is a couple of 100 miles down the road at Wembley having a lovely day out again. It wouldn't happen at another club. I've said it many times before. They wouldn't last at another club. And the fans for me have got blood on their hands in that respect. I'm glad nothing really terrible happened. Obviously, no one got hurt, I don't think. But I'm also glad that it happened. I'm glad that was flooding in like it was, because it showcases to the world this is what the Glazers have done to Manchester United. It was a stadium that was the best club stadium in England, and now not only can it not keep water out, but it's flooding when there's a heavy downpour. As it undoubtedly it was a heavy downpour. So for me, it's shameful. And then Rooney's comments about players that are out injured that probably could play. It's really hard to prove or disprove. He's probably right. But without substantiating it and naming names, which he's obviously not going to do, it's hard to be accountable for a statement like that. It's just a hunch. And it's quite a safe thing to say. So, for example, if Marcus Rashford comes out and says, how dare you question whether I'm injured or not, well, Rooney could quite easily say, I wasn't talking about you. You weren't one of the ones I was talking about. So in many ways it's a conversation starter, but there's no end game to that conversation because it's just speculative. I'm not going to get into who I think he's talking about because that would be my opinion, but we could all have opinions of the people that are out and think we know them and think, oh, he seems the type of character that would play through injury, he doesn't. For example, you could think with Luke Shaw, he's injured all the time, so maybe he can't play through injury, maybe he needs to be 100% to be able to play, but that could just be bang wrong. Maybe Luke Shaw gets loads of injuries because he tries to get back too quickly. I don't know. So none of us know. It's a really difficult thing to prove one way or another, and if it's true, which I don't doubt to some degree, it probably is, it's just further indicative of what I said in a previous video, that which is this team is largely made up of players that are not physically, psychologically, emotionally, mentally, and technically good enough and strong enough to play for Manchester United, because you do sometimes have to play through injuries. So, yeah, again, not pretty. Moving forward, we've got. I'm glad the season just is out of the way this week. I'm glad that it's not a game on Saturday, then another game the Saturday after, then the FA Cup, because we just need this shut down. We need it done with. We've got Newcastle tomorrow. We've got Brighton at the weekend, and then obviously the FA Cup final the following weekend on May the 25th. We've lost 14 games, which is the most we've lost since the late 80s. We have conceded 56 goals, which is a record in Premier League times. We have a -4 goal difference. We are 8th in the Premier League table with 54 points. The most we could get is 60. I highly doubt we're going to get that. I think the least we've ever got in the Premier League era is 58, and I think we'll struggle to get that. So when people talk about mitigating circumstances because of injuries, I get it, but despite all that, I would imagine a poor season for United would be finishing about 6th with 67, 68 points, and you could point to the injuries and say that's happened because of those injuries and because of other stuff that's going on around the club and particular issues with certain individual players, and you say, although that's not great, it's a poor season, it's acceptable given the circumstances. 54 points is not acceptable even given the circumstances. It's not acceptable. I'll just repeat myself, it's not. It's a really, really poor season, regardless of injuries, regardless of mitigating factors. And I said, what did they get? 31 points they had at the turn. So at the halfway point, so they've got 23 points in the second half of the season. That's absolutely terrible. And for a long period of time, he's been really stubborn about the way he's played, Ten Hag. He hasn't played Ahmad, which baffles me, because for me, he looks a real player every time I see him play. He chased after Amrabat. He hasn't played him, and you look at, I think the impact he had the other day was pretty decent. I certainly think he gives a physical presence that we haven't otherwise got. So I think we could have got a lot more points than that, even with all the mitigating factors, as I said. So these next few games, well, 2 games before the final, for me, it's about trying to get something out of one of them or both of them, both those games, and have some semblance of positivity going into the cup final. Because if the cup final was this weekend, well, it's not going to make that much difference this weekend or next weekend. I think we all fear what might happen, but at least we've got 2 games to maybe try and build something. Regarding players coming back, I think Martinez is the key one for me. Hopefully, if he can, and I think Fernandes will be back. But Martinez is running out of games to get some time on the pitch. He now needs, probably, if he's fit, probably half an hour tomorrow against Newcastle and an hour maybe against Brighton. Can he do 90 minutes in a week, as in the half an hour put together, without breaking down? I don't know. There's no way you'd start him in the cup final unless he's had that amount of that I think roughly that amount of time, and he could still break down in the cup final. If he's 60-70% fit, I'd play him in the cup final, but he needs some time on the pitch before then. It's a big game to just be thrown into against that lot. So let's hope to see him in the squad tomorrow. Bruno, I'm sure, will be back, whatever his ailment is, and I don't really care about Rashford whether he's back or not. I'd probably, to be honest, prefer him to stay out of the team, but could Varane possibly come back into it? He's just announced he's leaving at the end of the season. Be good if he could. Be good if he was fit. I think again that would make a bit of a difference. Maguire, Lindelof, it's just numbers. When you get to Maguire and Lindelof, for me, it's just numbers. It's not because of fantastic qualities they've got, but they give you something and some. It's a natural player in a natural position, and that's where we're down to at the moment. looking at the whole picture, the stadium as it was the other day, the fact that we're pretty happy with a 1-0 defeat against Arsenal. We're eighth in the table, and that is still cause for debate as to whether a manager should go or stay, despite the fact we're eighth in the table. I think if you put all of that stuff together and you look at what Ratcliffe and his crew have got to do, we keep hearing that he's obviously looking for elite performances. He's trying to build an ethos. He's trying to build a culture, and the part of that is these small details, things like offices need to be tidier. People need to be coming into work instead of working from home, and I agree with all that. I think that's all good stuff. We apparently are going towards, I might get the terminology wrong here, but I'm sure it was called a whole club model or something like that, where there's a culture set by the top, and everyone within the club does that, whether it's the under 9s, under 10s, etc., all the way through to the first team. And people are sort of looking at that and going, oh, wow, that sounds absolutely amazing. This is just what everybody else does. So all of this stuff that needs to happen and they're going to do, all of that, I think is going to take 2 or 3 years. And that just brings you to par. That brings you to where probably Brighton, Aston Villa, Tottenham, Wolves, West Ham, Newcastle, maybe even further on than that, where those teams are. That doesn't take you to Arsenal, Liverpool, forget City, because they're not playing on the same level playing field as everybody else because they're allowed to cheat. But let's say Liverpool and Arsenal are our benchmark. We're not going to get there in 2 or 3 years. Just to put in place the magnitude of stuff that needs to be done and in the next to bring us to par, to bring us to Brighton, Villa, etc. That's going to take 2 or 3 years. We haven't got the people through the door this summer to do the jobs that need to be done. So I just think it's really, really fanciful to think that we're going to be competing in 3 years' time for titles or right up at the top of the league. I just don't see that happening, unfortunately. A couple of asides to finish on, really. One pretty significant one for the now and then, the other one's a bit of a memory. I did an overview profile of Thiago Motta a couple of weeks ago, saying that for me, of the candidates that's out there, he's the one that probably appeals to me the most, apart from Zidane, who I don't think is attainable. And I said in the video, the proof will be in the pudding. If he can get Bologna over the line and get them into the Champions League, that for me would catapult him, I would say, quite high up on anyone's list. And he did that at the weekend, or Bologna achieved that. They got confirmed as being in the Champions League with a 2-0 away win at Napoli, and Roma were beaten by Atalanta. So they're in the Champions League next season, Bologna. They've got the 8th smallest budget in Italy. And that, I think, is probably second only to what Alonso's done at Leverkusen, if you look across Europe, in terms of a young manager with an up-and-coming reputation. It's an incredible achievement. And I keep hearing that even now, even despite those really horrible statistics I just read out before, that the consensus is probably that Ten Hag is going to stay because there's no viable options out there. And maybe Thiago Motta wouldn't want to come to United, but he, for me, is a viable option. And whether we like it or not, whether you finish in 6th or 4th is a big difference, and they're going to finish 4th or 3rd by the look of it. So over the last few weeks, he's got them over the line. That is the crucial factor for me. He's got them over the line. It'd be brilliant regardless of whether they got over the line or not, but he has got them over the line. And that then, for me, has to put him into a bigger conversation about this. But I don't think it will, unfortunately. On just a memory, today marks 30 years since we beat Chelsea 4-0 in the 1994 FA Cup final to confirm the double. And I was going to do a video yesterday, and I was purposely waited to today to do it, to be able to say that, because that for me is I think that's the best United team I've seen, that 93-94 team. The treble winning team obviously get so much adoration, and they deserve it, and it's 25 years since we won the treble this year. But that team that won the domestic double that season had everything, and it's my favourite United team to watch. And that's where we are, that's where I am as a fan. is looking back at stuff like that and being very blessed and being very grateful, but thinking, when are we ever going to have days like that again? If ever. When are we even going to compete? Wouldn't it be great to do a video where I sat down and said, well, that was a really enjoyable watch. You know, we played good football, we had a clear identity, we had a clear style, we've got a manager on the touchline who I feel is assured and has presence, and I trust him. We've got young players, we've got players who want to play for us, we've got an attacking culture about us where we go and try and hurt teams. There's a feel-good factor in the fan base. The stadium's looking great. You know, wouldn't it be great to do that? But it just feels like it's absolutely years and years and years away. It feels like a dream at the moment. So winning doubles and seeing teams like that one in 1994 is lovely to look back on, but it's also a stark reminder of where we are now. And as everyone says, football's cyclical. So, you know, we've had our time. I'm very blessed to have seen the things that I saw United achieve, but I still think you always have to demand the best, and you always have to want to try and achieve that again. And for that to happen, I don't think people understand the monumental amount of work, just as I said, just to get us to where Brighton, Villa, Newcastle, Wolves, West Ham, Tottenham are. As for tomorrow, Newcastle, don't know. Again, just like I said with Arsenal, don't know. I think we're probably more likely to lose than win. I think it'll be another damp squib of a game, really, I would imagine. And just hoping that Martinez gets some time on the pitch for me. So I'm really bothered about tomorrow. And it'll be a send-off for Varane, who I think has always done very well at United. And as I mentioned previously, I don't think I would be letting him go, but they are. And there's going to be more work in the summer, which was already going to be an unfeasibly busy summer. So we'll see what happens with that. As always, Glazers out.